6 months later, the Harmony Point station had been transformed. The central hall, previously used for formal diplomatic meetings, now housed the first Seltharian Human Cultural Center. At its heart was a restaurant with two separate kitchens, one for human chefs and one adapted to Seltharian food preparation methods. Jack walked through the busy dining area, nodding to the mixed groups of humans and Seltharians sharing meals at specially designed tables. Some tables were divided, with different foods served on each side, while others featured brave diners sampling carefully prepared dishes from the other species. Ambassador Miller called a familiar voice. Jack turned to see Krevex approaching, its exoskeleton a vibrant shade of blue. The second minister had been stationed on Harmony Point for the past 3 months as the official Seltharian cultural liaison. Second minister, Jack greeted with a smile. "How are you enjoying the new spice garden?" "Most impressive," Krevex replied. "Your earth jalapenos are fascinating specimens. While I cannot taste them myself, our scientists are documenting interesting properties." They walked together toward the center's showcase display, a large glass case containing both the earth pepper plants and the Seltharian Zivex plants growing side by side. "The first commercial shipments of Zivex extract reached Earth last week," Jack said. "I've heard there's already a waiting list for alien fire sauce in 20 countries. And our pharmaceutical researchers have found 6 potential medical applications for compounds in your peppers," Krevex added. "Substances that cause you mild discomfort can help us treat serious nerve disorders." They stopped at a small table where Olivia and Natalie were seated with 3 Seltharian scientists. In the center of the table was a dish that had become famous throughout both human and Seltharian space: first contact fire stew. "Still working on the recipe?" Jack asked. Natalie nodded. "Version 12. We've added some earth habaneros to complement the Zivex extract. The human version is selling in restaurants all over Earth now. And the modified version without heat is becoming popular on our homeworld," said one of the Seltharian scientists. "The flavor base is quite pleasant without the burning compound." Olivia looked up from her tablet. "The medical exchange program has approved 10 more joint research projects based on our findings. Who would have thought that trying to poison us would lead to breakthroughs in pain management and nerve treatment?" High Minister Zixtal entered the Cultural Center, accompanied by several high-ranking Earth officials. Jack and Krevex moved to greet them. "Ambassador Miller," the High Minister said warmly, "the Human Seltharian Trade Commission has just approved the expanded agreement. We will begin construction of 3 more cultural centers next month." "Excellent news," Jack replied. "And the education exchange program. 30 human students have been selected to study on our homeworld," Zixtal confirmed. "And 40 Seltharian scholars will visit Earth universities." Later that evening, as the celebration continued, Jack found himself standing with Steve by the large viewport overlooking space. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when your scanner vibrated at that first dinner?" Jack asked. Steve shook his head with a smile. "Not in a million years. I was ready to call an emergency extraction. Instead, we're building an alliance on hot sauce." "It's more than that," Jack said. "We found common ground in our differences. What hurts them helps us, and what's useless to us is valuable to them. It's complementary." On the other side of the room, Krevex was demonstrating to a group of human chefs how to properly harvest Zivex crystals. The alien moved with confidence among the humans, its initial suspicion long replaced by genuine respect. "Do you know what the most popular Earth export to Selphar is now?" Jack asked. "Hot sauce making kits. Apparently, watching humans enjoy spicy food has become a popular form of entertainment there. And here we have Seltharians teaching cooking classes," Steve noted, gesturing to where a Seltharian food preparer was showing human students how to properly prepare non-spicy Seltharian dishes. Jack watched the diverse crowd with satisfaction. The formal alliance treaty, signed 3 months ago, hung prominently on the wall, its first page decorated with the image of a Zivex plant intertwined with an earth chili pepper. From poison to partnership, he said, echoing the phrase that had become the unofficial motto of the cultural center. Sometimes the universe works in strange ways. Or maybe, Steve suggested, the universe just needed humans who would ask for the recipe when someone tried to poison them. The large window of the observation deck gave Jack Miller a perfect view of the Seltharian mothership. It was massive, shaped like a giant oval, with strange bumps and ridges along its dark surface. Lights pulsed in patterns that no human engineer would have designed. Jack adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. "Nervous, Ambassador?" asked Olivia Grant. The xenobiologist stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the alien vessel. "Wouldn't you be?" Jack replied with a small smile. "First official dinner with an alien species we barely understand. I feel like I'm about to take humanity's final exam." Steve Brooks, the security commander, joined them at the window. His hand rested near his concealed stunner more out of habit than fear. "The shuttle is ready whenever you are, sir. All security protocols are in place." Natalie Patel approached with a tablet in hand. As the team's cultural specialist, she had spent months studying the few transmissions they had received from the Seltharians. Remember, they communicate not just with sounds but with movements of their upper limbs. Try not to make sudden gestures with your hands when speaking. Jack nodded. After years of distant communication, the insect-like Seltharians had finally invited humans to their ship for direct talks. This dinner would set the tone for all future relations between the species. The shuttle ride was quiet. Each team member was lost in thought as they approached the massive alien ship. As they neared, a section of the hull seemed to melt away, revealing a docking bay glowing with blue light. "That's our invitation," Jack said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The shuttle landed smoothly in the bay. The airlock showed that the atmosphere was compatible with human breathing, just as the Seltharians had promised. When the door opened, they got their first in-person look at the aliens. 3 Seltharians waited for them. They stood on 4 lower limbs while 4 upper limbs moved in complex patterns. Their bodies were covered in a hard, shiny exoskeleton that shifted from green to purple depending on how the light hit it. Their heads featured large compound eyes and moving mouth parts that reminded Jack of Earth insects, but much larger. The tallest Seltharian stepped forward. Its mouth parts clicked and whirred before the translation device on Jack's wrist converted the sounds to English. "Ambassador Miller of Earth, I am High Minister Zixtal. We welcome you and your team to the vessel Harmonious Unity." Jack bowed slightly as they had been told was proper. "High Minister, we are honored by your invitation and look forward to strengthening the bonds between our worlds." Zixtal's upper limbs moved in what the humans hoped was a friendly gesture. "Please, follow us to the gathering space. We have prepared a special feast to honor our new allies." As they walked through the curving hallways of the ship, Olivia whispered to Jack, "Their biology is even more fascinating up close. The exoskeleton seems to contain communication patterns. See how it changes color near the joints." Jack nodded but kept his focus on their hosts. Another Seltharian had joined them, slightly smaller than Zixtal, with darker coloring. "I am Krevex, Second Minister," it said through the translator. "I have personally overseen the preparation of your welcome feast. We have studied your biological needs extensively." "That's very thoughtful," Jack replied. "We look forward to experiencing your cuisine." Steve caught Jack's eye and tapped his wrist subtly, reminding him of the hidden scanners they all wore. They entered a large room with a low, circular table surrounded by cushions. The ceiling glowed with soft light that shifted colors slowly, creating a strangely peaceful atmosphere. "Please be seated," Zixtal said. "Soon we will share food and begin the true understanding between our species." As the humans carefully arranged themselves on the cushions, Jack couldn't help but notice how intently the Seltharians watched their every move. Particularly Krevex, whose compound eyes never left the humans as servers began to bring in strange vessels containing what would be their first meal shared with alien life. Jack smiled diplomatically. The real test was about to begin. An uncomfortable silence fell over the dining chamber. The Xeltharians stared at the humans with what seemed like confusion. Krevex's exoskeleton had shifted to an even paler shade, and its upper limbs moved in quick, agitated patterns. "Is something wrong?" Jack asked, still enjoying his spicy stew. He noticed none of the Xeltharians were eating the same dish. High Minister Zixtal's compound eyes turned toward Krevex briefly before addressing Jack. "We are surprised by your reaction. This flavor profile is one our species finds extremely unpleasant." Olivia looked up from her bowl with interest. "Really? For humans, this kind of spicy heat is quite popular in many Earth cultures. Some people specifically seek out foods that create this burning sensation." Krevex clicked its mouthparts rapidly in what seemed like private communication with the High Minister. The translator didn't catch these sounds, but the body language suggested tension. "Second Minister," Zixtal said, now speaking in fully translated speech, "is there something about this dish you wish to explain to our guests?" The humans exchanged glances. Steve's hand moved subtly closer to his hidden communicator. Krevex's 4 upper limbs moved in what looked like a gesture of resignation. "The dish contains extract of Zyvex plant. It is a substance that causes significant discomfort to Xeltharians. A mild toxin, you might say." "A toxin?" Steve asked sharply, putting down his spoon. "You tried to poison us," Jack added, his diplomatic tone giving way to surprise. "Not poison," Krevex clarified quickly. "Test. The substance causes temporary discomfort, but no permanent harm. It would make a Xeltharian's digestive tract burn painfully for hours." High Minister Zixtal's exoskeleton darkened, which Natalie recognized from her briefings as a sign of anger or embarrassment. "I was not informed of this test." Natalie, always quick to understand cultural nuances, suddenly laughed. Everyone turned to look at her in surprise. "I'm sorry," she said, "but this is actually funny. On Earth, we have plants called chili peppers that produce a compound called capsaicin. It creates exactly this burning sensation. Some humans can't stand it, but others love it. We even have competitions to see who can eat the spiciest foods." Olivia nodded, her scientific curiosity engaged. "The compound actually triggers pain receptors, but doesn't cause real damage. Our brains release endorphins in response, natural pleasure chemicals. Some humans become quite addicted to the sensation." Jack, seeing a chance to salvage the diplomatic situation, smiled at the Xeltharians. "It seems we've discovered an interesting biological difference between our species. What's painful for you is pleasurable for us." High Minister Zixtal turned to Krevex. "You intended to test the humans' resilience without my knowledge." Krevex's limbs moved in what seemed like an apologetic gesture. "I believed it prudent to assess their physiological responses before committing to deeper alliance. Their resilience is unexpected and impressive," added another Xeltharian at the table who had been quiet until now. "If humans find pleasure in what causes us pain, perhaps they are stronger allies than we anticipated." Jack decided to take control of the awkward moment. He raised his bowl slightly. "I propose we consider this an accidental discovery rather than a diplomatic incident. In fact, I'd like to know more about this Zyvex plant. Could it be traded? Many humans would probably enjoy its effects." Natalie nodded enthusiastically. "Earth's food manufacturers would pay well for new spices. We have entire industries built around spicy flavors." The tension in the room gradually eased. Zixtal's exoskeleton returned to its normal coloration. "Ambassador Miller, your understanding is appreciated. It seems we have much to learn about each other's biology." Steve, still suspicious, whispered to Jack, "They just admitted trying to poison us, and now we're discussing trade." Jack whispered back, "Not poison. Test." And we passed in a way they never expected. This is actually perfect for negotiations. Krevex, watching this exchange, seemed even more fascinated by the humans. Its upper limbs moved in a pattern that the translator interpreted as a question. You truly wish to know how to make this dish yourselves? For pleasure? Absolutely, Jack replied with a smile. In fact, I'd love the recipe. The dining chamber on the Seltharian ship glowed with soft blue light. Jack and his team were seated on one side of the low circular table, while High Minister Zixtal, Second Minister Krevex, and 3 other high-ranking Seltharians sat across from them. The room smelled of strange spices and oils that were not unpleasant but definitely alien. We begin our shared meal with gratitude for this historic meeting, Zixtal said, its upper limbs moving in what Jack recognized from briefings as a formal greeting pattern. Jack nodded respectfully. On behalf of Earth, we thank you for your hospitality and the opportunity to strengthen our understanding. Krevex watched the humans closely, its compound eyes reflecting the blue light. We have carefully researched human dietary needs. Each course has been selected for compatibility. The first course arrived on floating trays carried by smaller Zeltharians. Small bowls contained what looked like colorful jellies. Jack noticed Steve subtly activating his scanner as the bowls were placed before them. After a moment, Steve gave a tiny nod. No danger detected. Olivia was the first to taste the jelly. It's sweet, she said with surprise, almost like fruit. The jellies were followed by a second course of something like bread with various spreads. Again, the scanner showed nothing harmful. The humans began to relax slightly, enjoying the strange but pleasant flavors. The Seltharians ate different foods, using their complex mouthparts to consume what looked like living creatures that moved slightly on their plates. Jack kept the conversation flowing, discussing trade possibilities and cultural exchange opportunities. Madeley occasionally helped clarify human expressions that didn't translate well. The atmosphere grew warmer, and even Steve seemed less tense. Then the third course arrived. The servers placed steaming bowls before the humans. Inside was a thick stew with purple and orange vegetables, and small chunks of something protein-like. The liquid was a deep reddish brown and gave off a strong, spicy aroma. This is a special dish, Krevex announced, its voice translated with a note of what might have been pride. It is our highest delicacy, reserved for honored guests and important occasions. Jack's scanner vibrated once against his wrist, a warning of something unusual, but not immediately deadly. He caught Steve's eye, who had received the same alert. For a moment, Jack considered whether to use their code word and end the dinner, but diplomacy won out. One vibration meant caution, not danger. It smells wonderful, Jack said diplomatically, noting how intently the Seltharians were watching them. He could feel the weight of this moment. Refusing their special dish could be a serious insult. Jack carefully took a small spoonful and raised it to his lips. The other humans followed his lead, watching for his reaction. The moment the stew touched Jack's tongue, he felt a familiar sensation. Heat, like a good spicy curry from his favorite restaurant back on Earth. The flavor was complex and rich, with the burn building pleasantly. This is delicious, he said with genuine surprise. Far from being unpleasant, the stew reminded him of spicy foods from home. Olivia's eyes widened as she tasted her portion. It's like a really good chili, she said. Spicy, but in a nice way. Natalie seemed the most pleased. This reminds me of my mom's cooking. She loves using hot peppers. Even Steve, who had been most cautious, was enjoying the dish. Good kick to it, he commented, taking another spoonful. The Seltharians' reaction was not what Jack expected. Instead of seeming pleased by their enjoyment, Krevex's exoskeleton changed color rapidly, shifting to a paler shade. The other Zeltharians' mouthparts clicked rapidly in what seemed like confusion. You enjoy this flavor? Zixtal asked, its voice translator unable to hide the tone of surprise. Very much, Jack replied, taking another spoonful. In fact, this might be the most familiar tasting food we've had so far. Is there something like chili pepper in this? Krevex and Zixtal exchanged what could only be described as bewildered looks. Something wasn't going according to plan, but Jack wasn't sure what. He only knew that this strange stew was unexpectedly becoming the highlight of their first alien dinner. 2 days before the dinner, the human team gathered in the conference room of Harmony Point Space Station. The large metal table was covered with reports and holographic images of Seltharian biology and culture. Olivia tapped on a 3D model of a Seltharian, expanding it to show their internal systems. Their digestive biology is completely different from ours, she explained. They break down food using 3 separate stomach chambers with different enzymes. Our scanners haven't detected anything immediately dangerous to humans in their food supplies, but we should still be careful. Jack nodded as he studied the information. What about their intentions? Have we learned anything new about why they suddenly want this dinner after years of keeping us at a distance? Natalie pulled up a series of message translations on her tablet. Their formal communications are very reserved. They talk a lot about testing compatibility and establishing trust. It's normal for first meetings, but they seem unusually focused on sharing food as a trust exercise. Steve placed several small devices on the table. They looked like fancy jewelry, pins, cufflinks, and bracelets. Everyone needs to wear at least 2 of these. They contain medical scanners that will analyze anything before you eat or drink it. They'll vibrate once if they detect something potentially harmful. Each team member selected their devices. Jack chose a simple tie pin and a wristband that matched his formal uniform. Remember, Steve continued, we have emergency extraction protocols in place. If anything goes wrong, use the code word Starlight, and we'll have immediate support. Meanwhile, aboard the Seltharian ship, Second Minister Krevex moved silently through the curved corridors to a secluded laboratory. The door slid open with a soft hiss to reveal a smaller Zeltharian working at a complex station filled with vials of colorful liquids. Biochemist Nextor, show me your progress, Krevex demanded, upper limbs twitching with impatience. The biochemist's exoskeleton shifted to a lighter shade as it turned to face the Second Minister. Everything is prepared as you requested, Minister. I have isolated the compound from the Zyvex plant. Nextor lifted a vial containing a reddish powder. This substance causes intense discomfort in our kind. Cramping, burning sensations, increased heart rate. Our tests suggest it should have similar effects on humans, based on the biological data we've gathered from their medical transmissions. Krevex's mouthparts clicked with satisfaction. And the effects. Temporary and not life-threatening. Next, Tor assured. As you specified, it will cause discomfort but no permanent damage. The humans should recover within their day cycle. Excellent. The High Minister believes this dinner is purely diplomatic, but I must know the true resilience of these soft-bodied creatures before we commit to any alliance. Krevex's compound eyes reflected the red powder. History shows that knowing a species' weaknesses is essential for successful relations. What if they detect the compound? Asked Nextor. They won't. It will be mixed with similar-looking spices in their food. The concentration will be low enough to avoid immediate detection, but high enough to test their physiological responses. Krevex took the vial. I will personally oversee its addition to their meals. Back on Harmony Point, Jack stood alone at the viewport, watching stars and thinking about the responsibility on his shoulders. The door opened behind him, and Olivia joined him at the window. You should get some rest before tomorrow, she said gently. Jack smiled, just thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Or right, Olivia countered. This could be the beginning of something amazing. Let's hope so. Jack turned from the stars. Though I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this dinner invitation than simple diplomacy. Olivia nodded. That's why we're prepared. Between Steve's security measures and my biological scanners, we'll be ready for whatever the Seltharians serve up. Including food we can't eat, Jack asked with a small smile. Especially that. I packed emergency ration bars in my formal bag. Olivia laughed. just in case alien cuisine isn't to our liking. Little did they know that avoiding the food entirely was exactly what Krevex was hoping they wouldn't do. The day of the dinner arrived. Jack stood in his quarters, adjusting his formal diplomatic uniform one last time. The dark blue fabric with silver trim represented Earth's united governments. He checked that Steve's scanning devices were properly hidden. The tie pin and wristband looked like normal parts of his outfit, but would alert him to any dangerous substances. A soft knock at his door announced Natalie's arrival. She wore a formal dress in similar colors to Jack's uniform. "Ready to make history, Ambassador?" she asked with a smile that didn't quite hide her nervousness. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jack replied, taking a deep breath. "Where are the others?" "Waiting at the shuttle. Olivia is triple-checking her medical kit, and Steve is doing a final security briefing with his team." Together, they walked through the corridors of Harmony Point to the docking bay, where the small diplomatic shuttle waited. Steve stood by the entrance, speaking quietly to two security officers who would remain on standby during the dinner. Olivia was already inside, reviewing data on her tablet. "All set?" Jack asked as he boarded. Steve nodded. "We can be extracted within 10 minutes if needed. Just give the code word." "Let's hope we won't need it," Jack said as they took their seats. The shuttle journey to the Seltharian mothership was tense but quick. As they docked once again in the alien bay, Jack reminded his team, "Remember, this is about building trust. Be polite, be careful, but try to seem relaxed." Meanwhile, deep in the Seltharian ship, the food preparation area buzzed with activity. Unlike human kitchens, this space featured numerous specialized chambers where different atmospheric conditions could be maintained for various food preparations. Seltharian food workers moved efficiently on their 4 lower limbs, while their upper limbs handled cooking tools with surprising delicacy. Krevex entered the preparation area, causing the workers to pause briefly before continuing their tasks with greater focus. The second minister approached the chief food preparer, a Seltharian, with pale green markings on its exoskeleton. "Is everything proceeding as planned, Chief Velnar?" Krevex asked. The chief's upper limbs moved in a gesture of confirmation. "Yes, Second Minister. We have prepared foods that should be compatible with human biology according to the data." "Excellent. And the special preparations for our test?" Chief Velnar indicated a separate preparation station where several dishes were being finalized. "Those are the human-designated dishes. We await your final instructions." Krevex removed the small vial of reddish powder from a compartment in its exoskeleton. "I will oversee this personally. Which dish is most suitable?" The chief led Krevex to a steaming bowl of what looked like thick stew with purple and orange vegetables and small pieces of protein. "This dish has strong flavors that should mask any unusual tastes. The ingredients are all compatible with human digestion according to our research." Krevex carefully opened the vial and sprinkled the red powder into the stew, mixing it thoroughly with one of its upper limbs. The powder dissolved quickly, leaving no trace except a slightly deeper color to the sauce. "Perfect. Serve this as the third course to the humans. Make it appear to be our highest delicacy, a special honor." The chief's mouthparts clicked in acknowledgement, and for the High Minister and other Xeltharians at the table. "Prepare the same dish, but without this addition," Krevex instructed. "Mark them clearly. The containers with the blue marking are for humans only." As Krevex left the preparation area, a sense of satisfaction pulsed through its nervous system. Soon they would know if humans were truly resilient enough to be worthy allies, or if they were as fragile as they appeared. If the humans reacted poorly to this mild challenge, how could they possibly stand against the real threats of the galaxy? In the ceremonial reception chamber, High Minister Zixtal waited, unaware of Krevex's plan, genuinely hoping for a successful first formal meeting with these strange but intriguing humans. The remainder of the dinner shifted from tense diplomatic meeting to something closer to a cultural exchange. After the initial shock wore off, the Seltharians became genuinely curious about human biology and food preferences. So your species deliberately seeks out pain-causing substances for pleasure. Asked one of the Seltharian officials, its compound eyes fixed on Natalie, as she explained Earth's relationship with spicy foods. Not all pain, Natalie clarified. Just certain types. The burning sensation from spices triggers pain receptors, but doesn't cause actual damage. Many humans enjoy that specific feeling. Olivia pulled out her tablet and showed the aliens images of chili peppers, hot sauce collections, and spicy food eating contests from Earth. Some humans compete to see who can tolerate the most intense heat. We even have a scientific scale to measure spiciness called the Scoville scale. The Seltharians clicked their mouth parts in what the humans now recognized as expressions of amazement or surprise. "This is fascinating," High Minister Zixtal said, leaning closer to examine the images. "Our species evolved to avoid such sensations, as they typically indicate poison in our native ecosystem." Jack nodded. "Different evolutionary paths. What's dangerous for one species might be harmless or even pleasant for another." During this conversation, servers had cleared away the spicy stew and brought the next course. This one consisted of what looked like crystallized sugar structures in various colors. The human scanners indicated they were safe to eat, and they had a pleasant, sweet taste. Krevex, who had been quiet since revealing the truth about the stew, finally spoke again. "I must apologize for my deception. It was not honorable to test you without your knowledge." Jack considered his response carefully. "While we don't appreciate being tested without our consent, I understand your concerns. New alliances always involve risk assessment." "Your response is most diplomatic, Ambassador," Zixtal said. "And perhaps Krevex's test, while inappropriate in method, has yielded valuable information. Your species appears to have remarkable adaptations we had not anticipated." Steve, who had remained vigilant throughout the meal, finally spoke up. "So does this mean we passed your test?" Krevex's exoskeleton shifted to a deeper blue color. "More than passed. You have demonstrated resilience beyond our expectations. The amount of Zavex extract in that dish would have left me unable to function for a full-day cycle. And yet you found it pleasurable," added another Seltharian with wonder in its translated voice. Jack saw an opportunity to steer the conversation toward more productive topics. "This seems like a perfect example of how our differences could benefit both species. We might enjoy foods that you find inedible, while you might process materials that are useless to us. A complementary relationship rather than a competitive one," Zixtal observed. Olivia leaned forward eagerly. "I'd be very interested in learning more about the chemical composition of the Zyvex plant. With your permission, could we bring samples back to study? And I'd like to learn how you prepare it," Natalie added. The flavor profile was complex, not just heat but interesting earthy undertones as well. Krevex's upper limbs moved in what the translator interpreted as a gesture of surprise. "You truly wish to know how to prepare a substance that was intended to cause discomfort?" "Absolutely," Jack confirmed. "In fact, cultural exchange through food could be an excellent foundation for our relationship. On Earth, sharing meals has always been a way to build trust between different groups." The High Minister's exoskeleton brightened to a vivid blue-green that the humans hadn't seen before. "This is unexpected but most welcome. Perhaps we should establish a culinary exchange program as part of our initial agreements." As the final courses of the meal were served, the conversation flowed more easily. The Seltharians explained their food preparation methods, while the humans described Earth's diverse culinary traditions. What had begun as a test of human weakness had transformed into a celebration of differences and potential partnership. By the time dessert arrived, a strange but pleasant gel that tasted faintly of mint, even Steve had relaxed. Jack caught his eye and gave a small nod. Their first contact dinner had taken an unexpected turn, but somehow asking for the recipe for their own poison had turned potential disaster into diplomatic success. 1 week after the memorable dinner, Jack sat in a conference room on Harmony Point Station reviewing reports. The door slid open, and Olivia walked in carrying a small clear container with a reddish plant inside. "Is that what I think it is?" Jack asked, setting down his tablet. Olivia nodded excitedly. "The Celtharians just delivered our first sample of the Zyvex plant. It's fascinating, Jack. The chemical structure is similar to capsaicin, but with some key differences." She set the container on the table. Inside was what looked like a small red fern with tiny crystalline structures on its leaves. "And it's safe?" Jack asked. "Completely. I've run every test we have. It causes a more intense heat sensation than earth peppers, but no actual tissue damage." The Celtharians included detailed notes on how to grow it in controlled environments. Natalie entered the room, followed by Steve. She carried a small covered dish. "You need to try this," she said, placing it on the table and removing the cover. A rich aroma filled the room. "What is it?" Jack asked, looking at the reddish paste in the dish. "I worked with the Celtharian food preparers to create a human-friendly version of their spice blend," Natalie explained. "It's a combination of the Zyvex extract and some earth herbs. I'm calling it First Contact Fire Sauce." Steve looked at it skeptically. "And you're sure this won't burn a hole through our stomachs?" "Perfectly safe," Olivia assured him. "Though I wouldn't recommend it for anyone who doesn't like spicy food." Jack took a small sample on his finger and tasted it. The heat built quickly, stronger than any earth pepper he'd tried, but with complex flavors behind it. "This is amazing," he said, reaching for his water glass. "The food companies back on Earth are going to go crazy for this," Natalie said. "I've already had 5 requests for samples from major manufacturers." "And the Celtharians?" Jack asked, still feeling the pleasant burn on his tongue. "That's the best part," Olivia said. "They're fascinated by the whole concept of humans enjoying something they find painful. Krevex has requested permission to visit Earth to study our spicy food culture." Steve laughed. "From trying to poison us to wanting to visit Earth, that's quite a turnaround." High Minister Zixtal has also approved our proposal for a cultural exchange program, Jack said, bringing up the details on his tablet. 10 human chefs will visit their homeworld, and they'll send 10 of their food preparers to Earth. And I've been authorized to set up a research team to study other potential compatible food sources, Olivia added. "There could be hundreds of plants and substances that one species considers edible but the other would enjoy." The door opened again, and a communications officer entered. "Ambassador Miller, we have an incoming transmission from the Celtharian ship. Second Minister Krevex wishes to speak with you." Jack nodded, and the officer activated the room's main screen. Krevex appeared, its exoskeleton now a deep blue color that they had learned indicated a positive emotional state. "Ambassador Miller, I trust you received our first shipment of Zyvex plants." "We did, Second Minister. Our team is already studying them. And cultural specialist Patel has created a human-friendly spice blend." Krevex's upper limbs moved in a pattern they now recognized as pleasure. "Excellent. Our botanical experts have identified 5 more plant species that might produce similarly interesting effects for humans. We look forward to trying them," Jack said. "Our trade negotiators are preparing a list of earth spices that might interest your researchers as well." "This has become much more than I anticipated," Krevex admitted. "When I added that substance to your food, I expected at best to learn about human weaknesses. Instead, I discovered a strength we never considered. Sometimes the best discoveries are accidental," Jack replied with a smile. "What began as a secret test has turned into the foundation of our alliance." "Indeed," Krevex agreed. "The High Minister has asked me to inform you that our Council has unanimously approved the formal alliance treaty. We wish to sign it during a shared meal featuring both your earth spices and our Zyvex preparations." Jack couldn't help but laugh. A fitting way to celebrate. From poison to partnership in just a few weeks. "We have a Celtharian saying," Krevex replied. "The strongest bonds form when we discover unexpected strengths in others." As the call ended, Jack looked at his team with satisfaction. Well done, everyone. Who would have thought our first major galactic export would be hot sauce?